rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it is
Definitely a thing for just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
So, welcome to the dungeon.
Yeah, it's exciting to be, mate. Exciting to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while coming. I got asked to interview you a long time ago, but it's only just happened. This is not about me. This is about you. We need to talk about you.
You just want to talk about bikes, I know.
Do you ride, do you?
Every now and then.
Yeah,
not-
okay.
not-
Well, let's start
not
with that. What do you ride?
I had a BMW G310 there for a while. Got my L's
Yeah.
on it and got full license on it. I only sold it probably 12 months ago to a friend of mine from school, actually. Just never got out once I started business and sort of got busy, just never got the time to get on it. And he was pretty keen on it. And then I've got a KTM LC4 640 sitting in the shed that I need to redo the fuel line on it,
Nice.
give it a bit of a clean out. But
So a 640, now that's dating the bike. Is that like 15 years old?
it's a 99, yeah. So yeah, you're spot on.
99. Okay, so it's 20.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, it is,
Oh, yeah,
isn't it? It's 25-year-old.
25.
Yeah. Yeah, my uncle
so-
had it for a few years there, and then I ended up swapping him.
Yeah.
I had an old CRF 150 that I just sort of grew out a bit, and swapped him. He
Yeah.
gave that to his daughter, and I got the 640 and get to use that.
Nice. So is the 640 set up as a super motard or an enduro?
It was just set up as enduro, but it's ended up it's been stripped. It's just sort of just a bush bike now, like no mirrors or nothing on it.
Yeah.
Hanging guards, all that sort of stuff
No,
are
yeah.
off it. It's just a bush bike now.
That's
Which
a
is
big
convenient
bike
enough.
for the bush.
Yeah, well that's the problem I've
Yeah.
had is because we just live opposite the bush, so it's convenient that I can just hop straight into there. But that's the problem I had every time I went in there. It was just get too hot because the trails are too tight. So I need to go and get myself something a little smaller, 250, maybe a 450, something like that, just to get through.
Yeah. The 640 is really made for open trails and a mix of adventure riding almost.
Yeah, exactly right. It's just it's not suited for those sort of tight bush trails. It just doesn't get enough airflow through it, and
Yeah.
you can't really open it up and
Yep.
click up gears. You normally just sort of sit in first, second gear, just hovering through trails. But yeah, that's the plan eventually,
Yeah.
is to get a little smaller that I can actually utilize in the bush there a bit more.
Yeah, well, my 250 is going to be up for sale soon if you want a nice two-stroke for the bush.
I think I might have seen it on Facebook actually there. I think you might have put a couple of pictures up.
Yeah, I haven't put it up for sale yet, but I definitely enjoy posting pictures of my bikes.
Oh yeah, I might have to hit up the accountant soon and see if I can turn that into a business expense or not. Sure, there's some way we can do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a quoting vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Be a bit cheaper on fuel.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
always make it
anyway,
work.
yeah, definitely. That's what I'm looking at, and if I sell that and I get something else, I'm actually heading the opposite direction to you. I'm going bigger, going for a proper adventure bike.
Oh
But,
yeah.
I think it'll have to be a podcasting vehicle.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, once you put a few saddlebags on it and all that sort of thing. Yeah,
Yep,
definitely put
that's
it.
right.
Yeah, you can put the camera in there, put the microphone in there.
That's it. Got to do more interviews on the road.
Yeah,
That can
exactly right.
justify all my road expenses.
Yeah.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Do you want to leave your job to create a profitable and enjoyable lawn and garden business? Aussie Lawn Stars shares the stories, lessons and advice to help you grow a healthy, productive, efficient and sustainable business. Do you want more or simply have a question about what you heard? Contact Aussie Lawn Stars at iCloud.com or look me up, Gary Ashton, on Facebook and Messenger for individual help. Business coaching helps you to have the right mindset and perspective when it comes to daily decision making, planning, or knowing what to look for to improve your business. thinktankcoaching.com.au has helped me, and they can help you move towards your business goals. Visit their website or email them, thinktankcoaching@outlook.com. If you want to establish the best practices in bookkeeping, accounting and business structure, contact Adrian from Prosper Financial on 0249 773363. And you all need to head to Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia and the Australian Professional Lawn Contractors Facebook groups for supportive communities focused on our industry. If we've made everyone switch off because they're sick of listening to dirt bike talk, we should start talking about business, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know with you, and I think it's an interesting story, but you're going to have to tell me the details. Did you start your own business fresh in the industry, or did you get qualifications first and then start your business?
Yeah, so I'm actually a qualified greenkeeper. I done 5 years there at Newcastle Racecourse. Done my apprenticeship through there.
Okay.
Ended up finishing up there as a tradie, and was offered the job as track manager at Tamworth there. So I ducked out there at Tamworth, and I was there for 12, 14 months, something like that. And come back home. So I mean, I loved the racing industry. It was I really enjoyed it, but it was because I was traveling to and from Tamworth. So my
that
partner
gets
and
a
I,
bit
we live in
draining. That's
So we live in Clarencetown, and she's got horses, we've got goats, chickens, all that sort of thing, and I moved up to Tamworth
nice.
there, and I had a rental there, and I'd stay there sort of through the week, and if we were racing of a Monday or a Friday, I'd stay that weekend. So typically I'd come home a couple of days a fortnight on a weekend, and it just got too much for me. It just got too much, and I sort of felt bad because I was always, leaving everything for the missus at home to look after and worry about all that. But so I finished up there and come back down home and ended up getting a job in irrigation, doing one of the golf courses down Lake Macquarie there. Done that for probably 3-4 months, and was just sort of something come up on Facebook about Jim's Mowing, and I was like, yeah, cool. I sort of always joked to my family previously, about having Mitchell's
so that piqued your
Manscaping.
interest then.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Nice.
I always joked about doing a business myself previously, and then I can't say I was enjoying the irrigation side of things. Just sort of wasn't what I was thinking it was, and just wasn't huge on it. I enjoyed the real hands-on stuff, but just a few things I wasn't super excited about. But anyway, so I seen that out on Facebook, and I thought, I spoke to the missus and I said, hey, I might have a look into this and just give them a call and see what's involved, what it costs to set up, buy into the franchise, what kind of safety nets you've got, all that sort of thing. And then it just sort of skyrocketed from there. After probably a couple of weeks to a month, I'd ended up buying myself a franchise and was only a few weeks out of starting. And that was 18 months ago now.
Yeah, okay. So So before you started the franchise, you'd been in the industry for about 7 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it would have been about 6-7 years. Yep,
Yeah.
greenkeeping on
Yeah,
race
okay.
courses.
Yeah.
So a little bit
So
different.
before you bought into the franchise, you got a lot of experience on the race courses. But when I hear people doing greenkeepers trade, I picture that they're looking after turf on a golf course or a sports field or something like that. So when I'm thinking of race course, I'm like, isn't that just a lot of dirt getting chewed up by the hoofs of the horses or the dogs or whatever's racing?
Look, so there's a wide range. In some of the bush tracks are, I think, like Bong Bong. There's a few up Northern Territory way. A lot of them, they're either a all-weather synthetic track or they are just straight dirt, clay dirt, something like that,
Yeah, okay.
kind of mixture. But typically, a lot of the country, provincial, and metro tracks are all grass. The race tracks are, and then you've also
okay.
got a few different synthetic tracks, sand tracks, cinders tracks, sort of things like that. There's a wide range, so yeah, you get a bit of variety on it.
Yeah. So I've never done a greenkeepers course, not a qualified tradie. So I got to ask you the questions here. When you're talking a race course, it'd be different to a golf course in terms of the turf prep. And I can imagine, like a golf course, you've got somewhere around 300 mils of sand in depth and then probably gravel under that to keep the water flowing. And then on top of the sand, you've got um, your soil layer and your turf, right? So when it comes to a race course, I can imagine you probably want it to be a lot firmer again than what a golf course is, but you tell me.
Yeah, so I guess it's quite similar. The profiles are quite similar in that aspect. A lot of them run off specific standards in the industry. So again, different tracks vary. So Newcastle, for instance, was a sand-based track, which was built by Strathair, I think, around 2013, maybe 14, something like that. And then you look
Okay.
at some of those country tracks. Tamworth, for instance, it's a clay-based track. So different tracks have different profiles to them, but yeah, they all go along that similar idea of your main profile underneath, a drainage layer, a sub layer, and then another drainage layer underneath to ensure the best drainage you can get to it. And then typically,
Okay.
most New South Wales tracks or the warmer variety tracks are Kaikuya.
Yeah, okay. So with really good drainage, you'd also need really good irrigation, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Like Newcastle, for instance, there's a very, very large dam in the middle of the course. But typically for the last 10 years that I know of, I mean, it was pretty much drained and empty by the time you get to early summer, late spring, and you end up having to either go to they don't have bores there, they have to move to town water, but there's a lot of tracks that run bores or they run from town water because it's the only choice they've got, to keep the grass alive.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because it's kind of like WA in terms of once you've got a really deep sand profile, when you put water on it, it will disappear pretty quickly. So you've got to keep the water up in order for the grass to have that moisture level.
Yeah, exactly right. And like Newcastle's one of the best in the industry. Well, one of the best in New South Wales for sure. As far as its drainage goes, I mean, it's actually held quite a few meetings that other tracks haven't been able to go on with. Like, for instance, I think it was only last weekend, Gosford had probably one of their biggest race days of the year moved to Newcastle because it was too wet at Gosford to run. But Newcastle could hold it because the drainage is just superior on that day. And I mean, it gets away with it. But you're right, like it's a bit of a catch-22. You can have brilliant drainage, but you've also got to have the irrigation capabilities to keep that track going and keep it alive in the drier months.
Yep. So, from what you're saying there, if Newcastle is one of the better tracks in New South Wales, is that because it's been rebuilt recently? Because you said 2014 or somewhere around there it was rebuilt. Or is it because the company that rebuilt it had far superior knowledge and wisdom?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So the Strathia tracks are very well known for their drainage capabilities and just how
Yeah.
good they are. I mean, like Moonee Valley, which is in Melbourne there, I think it's about 25-year-old, I think, their racetrack. And it was one of the first, I think, built in Australia. So they build all over the world. And
Okay.
it's also been one of the best tracks around for quite a long time. But yeah, it comes down to the materials they use, the work they put into it. And yeah, you're right. It's a newer track. So it's been well grown in and it's just got some far superior drainage to other tracks at the moment.
So for the guys in WA, because they'll be really enjoying that these tracks are built well and sounds kind of like WA lawns, but we got to stick it to them. You said they're mostly Kikuyu, which WA guys will just about vomit every time you say Kikuyu.
Yep.
So for a track like that, I'm guessing Kikuyu is the superior grass.
Yeah, it is in the warm season area of the East Coast here. Yeah, it definitely is, and it comes down to the growth patterns typically and the recovery that you get out of a Kikuyu track, like you typically would in a Kikuyu lawn. Sometimes you could go there 2 weeks later and it's another 2-3 inches higher than a couch lawn might be or a buffalo lawn might be, just because you know what they're like. They grow wild very quickly.
Yeah. I think the only downside I see with buffalo lawns is that they don't grow even. I mean, sorry, not buffalo. Kikuyu lawns, they don't grow evenly. Buffalo does grow evenly, whereas Kikuyu tends to be patchy. So I'm guessing when you've got it set up on a well-established track like that, you're getting a much more even growth with the Kikuyu.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I mean, like everyone sees, it tends to get spindly. If you're used to cutting it short at, say, like a 65, 75 mil height, it can get quite spindly and ugly if you come back 2 weeks later. But typically on a racetrack, you would cut at like the 3.5 to 4 inch height, and you typically race on a 5 to 6 inch surface. So the amount of chemicals you pump into it, sometimes the amount of chemicals you pump into it, and just the consistent cutting of it, like you typically can cut twice a week in good weather, but most of the time it's just once a week.
Yep.
But yeah, once you get that regular pattern into it, regular maintenance to it, the fertilizer up with it, it's dense, it's thick, it stays consistent, and it's a really good lush surface for the horses to go on too, because it's quite soft underfoot. Providing you rate the track right and you put enough irrigation on there, it's quite soft underfoot. It's safe for all the horses that use it, jockeys, etc.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds almost like American lawn when you're talking 5 or 6 inches.
Yeah, I guess you could say that actually, because I know a lot of those American lawns are quite high and they like to run stripes through it a fair bit. So yeah, very similar in that aspect.
Yeah. So when you were saying cutting it short at 65, 70 millimeters, I'm like, short? That's tall. Like that's about as tall as a Honda self-propelled mower can cut, probably even taller than it can cut.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a bit different in the racing industry where we're used to higher cuts, but yeah, you're right. In typical residential, cut it a lot shorter and try keep it dense and lower to the ground that you can, while also keeping it looking nice and not getting spindly and out of control.
So what do you cut the track with? What sort of mower?
So in Tamworth, I had a trying to remember off the top of my head. It was a Kubota ZD. I think it was a 1221 or 1227. It was about a 72 inch deck. And then
Yep.
in Newcastle, we had John Deere 997s, I think they might have been, with the 7 iron 2
okay.
decks. But we also ended up
and both of those
buying a
machines are
Ventrac
really
lathe.
good at, like, those deck designs are awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like we ended up getting a Ventrac there late in the piece, and had the finishing mower on the top and the aerator, the corer with it as well, and all that sort of thing. So mixed it up a little bit. But I think they've gone
nice.
to I believe they've gone to a vacuum system now, and they bag it and dump it to stop the clippings going on the track and sort of getting too thatchy.
Yeah, okay. So is that with the Ventrac, or is they gone to a different mower that has good bagging?
Yeah, I believe it's a John Deere. I'm not sure what they've bought, but it's a John Deere setup with baggers on it, and they just dump it on the side of the chute there, and then get rid of it later on.
Yeah, okay, nice. That's it's interesting to talk about that, because a lot of people wouldn't have that insight that you have with working on a racetrack. Even if they've done greenkeeper's course, there's not a lot of people that do that. I know one other person that I've spoken to that works on a racetrack.
Yeah, it is a bit different, and to be honest, I found it a little bit, like in TAFE, the main sort of focus is bowling greens and golf courses, because that's what majority of the greenkeepers are sort of at.
Yep.
And I found it hard in some aspects to relate it back to a racetrack, because you could sort of never get, when they were teaching you certain things, it was more focusing on the height of cuts for bowling greens and golf courses, and it sort of was a bit hard to get it to match up with a race course. But it all ends up being the same kind of principle. But yeah, I just found a few things I couldn't match up as easy as you could with a golf course.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have anyone at work that you could go to that was in charge that could help you get a better understanding of the difference?
Yeah, so my the first track manager I had, he'd been around for a long time. He'd been in Queensland, he'd been in New South Wales, and obviously he was in New South Wales at the time. And he ended up moving up to Queensland probably within about 12 months of me being there. And yeah, I could always go to him, and he'd sort of give you some basic answers. But then the second track manager I had come along, he was an he was a greenkeeper at in one of the golf courses in Sydney there. So he was really handy to get a lot of information from, but in the same aspect, he sort of was also learning the differences of a golf course to a racetrack. Mainly the height of cut and sort of the way you maintain a racetrack. But look, there was also quite a few staff members there that had been there for a long time, and one specifically who'd been there for a long time, and he was always sort of a bit of a 3IC in the sense, and he was always in the know about what was happening, and he was always really handy to go to because he's a very knowledgeable man, and I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, that's awesome to have people like that when you're doing your trade.
Yeah, exactly right, and it's nice to get differing people's opinions because one opinion doesn't always cut it.
Yeah, and when you've got three different people with three different opinions, it helps to give you a better balanced view sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you pinch certain aspects of what their opinions are, and you can build your own opinion of how you think this should be maintained or that should be maintained. And I think that's the beauty of it. And the same goes for going to TAFE and speaking to different guys who work on golf courses and bowling greens. They're very similar. You might pick something up from them and you're like, oh, hey, I can probably use that at the race course. And again, different scenario, but same principle in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this industry, like a lot of technical industries, you often get to the stage where people are very strongly opinionated and they believe that their way is the only way to do things. So it's good to be able to be in an environment where you've got those different opinions brought together so you get to balance them out.
Yeah, yep, 110%. There are a lot of people that are very much set in their ways, but it's always nice to see people that have differing opinions and are willing to take on other people's advice. It's the only way you'll personally, it's the only way I think it's the only way you'll move forward in life and in business is by learning new ways and accepting that people have different views.
Yeah, definitely. And see that come up on Facebook groups in LMCA and the professional contractors groups. You see a bit of battle of the opinions come up every now and then. When, your hot topics like catching versus mulching, but everyone knows what's best, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. We all know catching's best, so it's superior.
Yeah. It sounds like you spent a lot of your trade, or not mulching, but side discharging, which I guess, we could argue whether that is true mulching or not, couldn't we?
Oh, look, I always love seeing some of those comments come about catching and mulching, and then thatch gets mentioned into it, and there's a lot of opinions, but yeah, look, that was predominantly the way the tracks were always kept. It was always side discharging either, and I mean, I always like to rotate and clockwise one way, anti-clockwise the other time, just sort of mix it up. But look, like I said, Newcastle's gone to the bagging system, and I know some of the bigger tracks as well, like in Rosehill and Randwick, they use bagging systems as well to reduce the amount of thatch in there and reduce the amount of renovation you have to do. So, but it differs depending upon what the club is, the kind of financial position they're in, and opinions as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I can imagine if you're talking 6-inch height of cut, then and particularly where you're throwing a lot of fertilizer on there to keep it growing and keep it nice and thick, then thatch is much more of an issue than if you're cutting lower or if you're not using a lot of chemicals.
Yeah, absolutely. Thatch is a huge problem when it comes to racetracks, especially Kaikuya racetracks, because that's exactly right. When you're covering a 25-meter span and you're constantly side discharging grass, and especially if it's 6 to 10 inches high, depends on sort of when you race and when you get onto it. There's a lot of grass that falls through and just creates a lot of problems.
Yeah, I can imagine. So if you reduce the cut height, so you're talking outside of the racetrack, if you can cut at 40 or 50 millimeters, then when you're side discharging or mulching, the likelihood of getting that thatch layer is reduced because you're cutting lower.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. I completely agree with you on that. You're certainly not cutting near as much grass, and you're not throwing near as much back onto the surface.
Yeah, and I know we could get caught up on this topic for a long time, going back and forth on the various issues there, but I want to give people a bit more insight into what's happened with you since you left the racetrack. So you said that you started up with the gyms franchise about 18 months ago?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And you're living out Clarencetown, so whereabouts is your franchise run?
So when I purchased the franchise, I actually purchased in Raymond Terrace South there because personally, I looked at it and I wanted to pick somewhere that had a bit of a dense population that I could comfortably say to myself, I'm going to get frequent work there and I won't have any concerns. Because as you do with anything, and especially when you're starting a mowing contracting position, you're like, oh, am I going to have enough work? What's it going to be like, et cetera, et cetera. So I purchased in Raymond Terrace South, and I don't really take much work in Raymond Terrace anymore. So I just renamed my business essentially to Clarencetown because that's where I'm based from. But typically work-wise, I go as far as Rutherford and up to Tea Gardens. So it's around about a 35, 40-minute drive either way for me.
Yep. So with a franchise like that, do they consider your territory to only be where you purchased, or is that something that becomes flexible because of the amount of franchises or the lack of franchises in the areas where you want to work?
So the beauty of it is the territories don't mean so much. And I learned that pretty quickly. They don't mean so much because you can take work wherever you seem fit, wherever you see fit. I mean, say for instance, like
Yeah.
I bought Raymond Terrace South, but I had my work open for Clarencetown, Dungog, Maitland, Thornton, Beresfield, etc., etc. So they don't lock you into your territory, which is
Okay.
I learned pretty quickly. Yeah, I didn't even have to buy in Raymond Terrace South. I could have just bought Clarencetown, and it wouldn't have mattered.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it.
And I'm guessing, without giving too much away, I'm guessing that there's not a lot of other gyms franchises that are tightly packed in that area. And I know the area reasonably well myself. So you're talking sort of semi-rural areas outside of Raymond Terrace.
Yeah, so there's a few around. The way it works is the franchisor sort of controls per se how many people are in an area, and my franchisor is
Yep.
he uses a bit of common sense, and he says, I believe there's two positions. For instance, I believe there's two positions in Raymond Terrace. So there's Raymond Terrace. I think it's just named Raymond Terrace, and then there's Raymond Terrace South,
Yeah.
which I believe there's a new franchisee starting in there shortly.
Okay.
But yeah, it comes down to a bit of common sense and to how many people can work in this specified area, and also the amount of unserviced leads that go unserviced in that area as to whether they need to have a
Yeah.
franchisee in there or not. In which case, I
No.
mean, there's no one out Clarencetown, Dungog way. I'm the only one out here, which is quite handy for me. But otherwise, sort of Maitland,
Yeah.
Thornton, Raymond Terrace way. There's a handful of people there.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm just thinking, with a gym's franchise set up there, if there's a franchise that is allocated the region around Thornton, for instance, then they would get the leads as priority over you for Thornton.
Yeah, that's correct. So how it works is, so for instance, I've got my leads open for Thornton, and then the franchisee who is in Thornton is open. He gets priority, but it's also a fair system where I don't know the exact specifics or how to describe it, but if he gets one and I haven't had one for a while, it'll also get shuffled to me after a couple to sort of make it a bit fair
Yeah.
for all franchisees in the area. Yeah, I'm probably messing that up with
Yeah,
how
fair
it's
enough.
sort of how I've said it, but it's quite a fair system, and it lets everyone get work while also ensuring that the person that's in that area, that bought in that area, still gets a priority over the other franchisees, providing their work is open.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I think some of it comes down to your franchisor and how they work that out. And I think the other thing would be to go back to gyms, talk to Joel or somebody like that to get more clarification around how they do some of those spreading of leads.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, personally, I've never had a problem with it. Never had a problem
Yeah.
with the system or how it
Yep.
works. I just do my thing and I open my leads when I need them.
Yeah. And so far, your experience with gyms has meant that the reasons why you joined gyms has proved successful. You haven't been wanting for a lack of business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when I was looking for a franchise and buying in, I looked at the three of them, or the main three, I should say. It's gyms, Fox, and VIP.
Yeah.
Weighed up different pros and cons to either one, and I sort of just kept going back to the fact that gyms is synonymous with mowing. Everyone knows,
Yeah.
who you're going to call if you're going to get mowing. Everyone just knows it's the gym's mowing kind of thing, and that's why I bought
Yeah.
into it. Um, and I've also had quite a few people, clients and friends that have said to me, why didn't you just do it yourself and just go out as an independent? And
Yeah.
which was a great idea, of course. But to be honest, I wanted a little bit of a surety sort of behind myself that I could succeed. And
Yeah.
I felt like if I had the marketing system behind me and also the way they advertise, put leads out, all that sort of thing, that I knew I'd succeed. And I felt if I was to
Yep.
do that as a independent, I probably would not succeed, but it would be my doing because I probably wouldn't push myself enough to get out there, letterbox drop, do all that sort of thing. So that was why I ended up going the gym system.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of value in people recognizing that. I started independent and I've never become part of a franchise, always remained independent. But I'm very happy to talk about the positives of being in a franchise and having that system in place that gives you the marketing funnel, the leads, and the consistency of work and quality of work that you get from those leads as well. So certainly, I see a lot of value in going with a franchise, whether it's whichever one you choose, but the ability to rely on those systems so you can focus on getting the work done and knowing that the business is going to function well. It's peace of mind.
Yeah, that was it. And I mean, I didn't. Yeah, the biggest thing that I was sort of looking at when I was going into this was I didn't want to fail, and I just felt having a franchise behind me, um, the professional setup they have, the software they provide you, but also the other franchisees that are around the area that you can sort of lean on and get a bit of experience on. I just felt that little bit more comfortable doing that and knowing that I wasn't going to be sort of financially chasing myself if I were to go independent. I mean, in saying that too, there are times that I think about if I went independent, you see a lot of people and they're like, oh, such and such from this school called me or from this place called me, this business or whatever it might be called me. You don't get that luxury with gyms in the sense they don't directly call you unless they have your card. Whereas if say
Yeah.
for instance your business is on Google or Facebook, they can just Google in the area, hey, I want a mowing contractor, and they see you and they call you. So look, there are benefits to both sides, but yeah, again,
Yeah.
I felt there was a bit more security and assurity with going with the gym system.
Yeah, and I can see value both ways as well. I think there's benefits either which way, and as with some of the other things in our industry, people tend to be very one-eyed with that and view it as there's only one way to do it and the other way is wrong. But yeah,
Yeah,
I see value in both options there. I think it's definitely valuable to weigh up the pros and cons of both of those options if you're looking at starting a business, and be fair because there are benefits either way.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of contractors that are on LMCA that have been with a franchise system before and ended up going independent. And whether they've had a positive or a negative experience, it's whatever it is. But everyone has differing opinions on it, and there are success stories in both aspects to it.
Yeah, I've seen a number of people in LMCA that have switched between one franchise and another, or gone independent, or gone back to a franchise, and it seems that for some people, it's switching around, trying to find the golden egg, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So when you started, Gyms gives you a list of equipment that you should buy, right?
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, each franchisor is different in their areas.
Yeah, of course.
My franchisor, the way he sells the businesses are, the way he sells his territories is he offers setup packs, I guess you could say, where you can
Yeah, okay.
purchase uh, whippersnippers, blowers, all the main things that you need when you start up. And
Yep.
in the transition between leaving the irrigation company and starting that, I just said to him, look, I'll just buy that pack from you. I'm happy to start with that. And that included the 21 and commercial Toro, the recycler, Shindaiwa whippersnipper,
Yep.
and then Husqvarna handheld gear. So your blower, multi tool, etc. And there was a couple of fertilizer
Yep.
bags and a couple of different other packs that he set up with me as well.
Oh, yeah. So does he have a local trailer builder that does the Jim's trailer, or do they come from from a national trailer builder?
Oh, I know
Sure?
that trailers come from Melbourne. I think I can't
Okay, yep.
remember. Yeah, I can't remember who it is that builds them. But the trailers are
Yeah,
built
that's
in
all right.
Melbourne and typically shipped to wherever you might be. I actually
Yeah,
had the luxury
so
though
national trailer builder then.
yeah, exactly. But I actually had the luxury of buying a secondhand trailer from one of the franchisees down in Central Coast there because it was
Nice.
too big for his area. So it's a 10 by 5 trailer, dual mower box in the front, etc. And he just needed
Yep.
something a bit small because it was, he was in suburbia and a 10 by 5 was a little bit too big for him. So thankfully I got
Fair.
that secondhand off him. And that
Yep.
helped me kick off, and it was plenty big enough for what I needed, being sort of that rural / residential kind of setup.
Yeah, so being in that region where you are, you would have gone for a ride-on mower to add to the arsenal fairly quickly, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I mean, because we live on property, I just had a 42-inch Rover Rancher that I just use around the property, and that was just it was only quite new as it was. I think it only had maybe 15, 20 hours on it when I bought the business anyway. And so I used that for the first sort of 12 months. I didn't have too many bigger acreage properties to look after, but I used that for the first sort of 6 to 12 months. And then I ended up buying a 52 V-Ride stander.
So with the 52 V-Ride, what's the horsepower on the motor on that one?
So I bought the bigger one, the 37 horsepower.
Nice. So that's well and truly capable of tackling anything that you come across.
Yeah, and that was the thing I wanted. When I was actually looking, I'd sort of gone into terrace mowers, and I had prepared myself that I was going to buy the right standard B. Funnily enough,
Yeah.
And then I went in there and I started to speak to Mike and Sue there and just talk about different options. And they actually mentioned that obviously the Skag was there as well, but they mentioned that the Skag had the option to go a bigger engine. So I went away and sort of thought about it, and I thought, well, I just want to future-proof myself to a degree of knowing that being out rural, and that's sort of what I want to target in the end. I want to know that if I'm going to go out and do some of these overgrown jobs or, paddock mows, whatever it might be, large acreage mows, that I'm comfortable and can hit them with whatever and not have a problem.
Yeah, I think if you stay with right, you got to go up to the ZK to get the 37 horsepower on these. Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season.
I mean, the Skag had the same option, but, like I said, the 37 horsepower was the thing that just sort of clicked in my head, and I was like, for a couple grand extra, I sort of future-proofed myself knowing that I'm not going to have a problem.
Yeah, it's an easy decision, isn't it?
I've
talked to a few people with the zero turns and the standards. I've talked to a few people about the horsepower ratings of them, and it would seem you can go a low horsepower option, which is going to be okay if you're just doing weekly cuts where you never have to worry about the grass being too thick or too long. But then you've got a mid horsepower option. So you go from the low horsepower, which in the 52-inch size might be 22 or 24 horsepower. The mid horsepower range is up around 27 horsepower, 28 horsepower, and then the high end ones are around 35 to 40 horsepower.
Yeah, and I mean that's the beauty of it. Exactly what you said. Then if you're wanting to use it on sort of typical residential lawns that are constantly maintained, the lower horsepower engines are perfect for that. But I was imagining typical rural properties might have to be a fresh cut, or you might typically look after X amount of acres around the house, and then the client might want you to do a couple extra areas. And I thought, well, better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, I've looked after a number of acreages, and one of them that I'm thinking of was a horse farm. And you'd go in and do a horse paddock when the horses weren't keeping it under control. So it's not a case of doing it every week or every fortnight. It could be once every couple of months, or every 6 months, or maybe even one every 12 months.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, that's the beauty of a lot of these high-end mower companies that have different ranges and different options for anyone's pleasing.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. It makes your job a lot easier if you know you've got the higher end machine. You know you can tackle whatever comes along. Still, some jobs worth turning down.
Oh, exactly right. Yeah, sometimes you look at it and you're just like, that's a slasher job. That's not a me job. So I'll leave that to the blokes with the tractors and the slashers. Thanks.
Yeah, that's it. So other than going from your basic startup to your ride-on machine and then your stander, are there any other tools that you've introduced after a while that you've thought, I really need to change that, or I need to add that to my arsenal?
Yeah, so there's been a few. I guess you could say some were maybe not impulse purchases, but maybe not thought out as much as I should have. But yeah, so I bought I bought the Skag SFC 30 mid last year, I think it was, just before tax time ended.
Yeah.
Great machine, brilliant machine.
Yep.
The only thing I've found over the last sort of 6 to 9 months is that I haven't needed it nearly as much as I thought I would, because when I bought this 52, I bought a Catch Pro as well, and I found that a couple of these residential lawns that had the double gates in them that I was using the 30-inch for, because I predominantly catch, unless I side throw, I predominantly catch all my lawns. And
you kind of gave that away earlier.
Yeah, a little bit.
Good.
But yeah, so yeah, when I bought this 52, I found that I could still use it on a few of these residential lawns, and the 30-inch sort of become a little bit null and void for me. And then there was another handful of lawns that the clients have sort of moved on or moved out, and I haven't needed the SFC 30 as much anymore. So it's just been sitting in the shed for the last 6 months. I'm in the process of selling it actually because it's still only low hours and I'm just not getting the use out of it. So figure it's probably worth more to someone else that could utilize it a bit more than me.
It's an interesting size that. I think if you've got a tight residential run, then a 30 or a 32-inch machine makes a lot of sense, where you've got those yards that are sort of around the 200 to 400 square metres of grass. Then you're probably going to have a tighter gate to fit through, and that's where a 30-inch size is really going to make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there were even a couple of lawns there that I knew I could use it out the front, but I just couldn't fit through that back gate to get me in the backyard, which was painful.
Wow.
So I had to revert to the 21-inch for that. But again, brilliant machine, and I have used it a few times in those overgrown lawns, and just either put the side chute on or taken the baffle off, and it just minces through a lot of very overgrown stuff because it's that 7 horsepower engine in it. But again, brilliant machine. Just probably not as much use as I thought I would get out of it, but in the same instance, that 52-inch took a few of those yards anyway, so it took a little bit of labour off me and put it on that machine.
Yep. You see a number of people rushing out and buying 32-inch standards, and they find the same thing, that after they bought it, it's not getting used as much as they would like to use it, and the value of a 32-inch standard is multiple times as much as what the SFC 30 is.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, look, it's quite a weighty machine. Don't get me wrong. It's I think it's 100 keg straight off the bat, but the caster wheels on the front, you really don't have a problem swinging it around and doing what you got to do with it. You get used to it. It took me a couple of days to get used to that weight and how different it was to a 21-inch, but in the same instance, it's a lot easier to get around than you typically think when you look and it says, hey, that's a 100-kilo machine.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really worthwhile for people who are looking at getting a 30 or a 32-inch machine to weigh up how many of their jobs are worth doing with that machine, so that when they make the purchase, they're confident that that machine's going to get a lot of use to warrant the purchase.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I even sort of considered a 32 myself, but then when I was looking at buying a standard, but again, I was more purchasing this to be a rural property maintenance machine, hence why I went the bigger machine. But I've only really got a couple of days a week that I do typical residential mowing. My business is sort of split between gardening and mowing, so I was quite happy with a 21 and that 30-inch, and then a 52 to do those rural ones. That is what I was really trying to get into.
Yeah, and I've done similar area to you, where I am down on Lake Macquarie. It's similar in terms of that mix between residential and acreage work, and so I've found the same thing. I had a 36-inch machine for a little while, but those sizes just aren't useful in my area, and so the 21-inch has been really handy. And then going up from there, I found 42-inch was really good, and 56-inch was really good. So I've found, like you, those 32, 30 and 36-inch machines, they're just not valuable in some areas. I think in the areas where they are valuable, they are the best machine for some people to have.
Yeah, exactly right. And exactly what you're saying, like, it comes down to where you are, what type of business you're targeting, and what's going to be the most profitable for you, and what kind of return you're going to get on that machine. Again, like I bought that 30-inch, and I've only got 40 odd hours on it. So I can look back at that now and say, well, probably a mistake in the sense that I'm not getting the return on it that I thought I would, but that's just the way my business has sort of progressed along, I haven't needed the 30-inch, or I haven't been able to use it on certain lawns. But it comes
Yeah.
down to making sure that when you're going to purchase a machine that's it's quite expensive, you want to make sure that it's specified to your area and what you actually need and are targeting work-wise.
I guess it's not quite as an expensive lesson as me buying a $20,000 excavator.
Yeah, I've heard a few of your comments regarding that, but I wouldn't mind one myself. I've hired it a few times to do stuff
Yeah.
at home, and funnily enough, actually,
Yeah.
the missus said to me the other week when I had one, she's like, "Oh, why don't you just buy one of these for yourself?" And I'm like, "Look, I don't have enough use for it. I'd love one, but I don't have enough use for
Yeah.
it. You would just see me digging holes in the backyard."
And they are a useful thing to have for somebody. And I've talked to numerous people that have bought one or are intending to buy one, and they can justify the use for it. So it definitely has its place. But for you or I, it's a case of going, well, it'd be nice to have it there. But what I found, if it's not getting used regularly, it still needs maintaining, and that costs money.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you don't want a $20,000 piece of equipment just sitting in the shed or sitting undercover somewhere. And you drive out the gate every day, and you're like, when am I going to use that next? You know, it's not nice to have that sitting there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you mentioned you do a fair split between residential lawns and gardening. So, with your gardening, are there any other tools you've lent into when you started focusing on that?
Yeah, so I ended up buying myself a Husqvarna battery blower pretty early on in the piece. I got
Yeah,
sick of pulling that bloody cord on the two-stroke all the time, and all I ever heard was about how good um, battery blowers and hedges were. And I do like Husqvarna. I'm used to Husqvarna. I've used them for years. Even on the
yeah,
racetrack, we typically use that.
yeah,
And so yeah, I bought a blower, and then I ended up buying the hedger as well, the extension pole hedger too. So that's come in handy a
yeah.
lot.
Okay, so the extension pole hedger is quite heavy, isn't it?
It can be, yeah, it definitely can be, but I found it to be a lot more useful than not, in the sense that there's a lot of times I'm on the ground and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, I just can't reach that. I'll just throw it up 6, 10
yep,
inches, whatever it might be, and I'm like, yeah, sweet. I don't have to get a ladder for it. So you're right, it's a bit weighty,
yeah.
but yeah, I found it to be a lot better than not having it at the time.
Yeah. So with Husqvarna, I went for their short pole hedger, which has not got an extendable length on it. It's just a fixed length. And that's quite manageable in terms of weight and balance. So I really was impressed with that purchase in terms of its usefulness. But yeah, there's certainly times where you go, oh, you know what, it'd be nice to have an extra um, 2 or 3 feet length. You could just push it out and reach a little bit further.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. You'd just like to have that little bit extra without having to go to the trailer and unhook the ladder, or you know, you just
Yeah.
can't miss that one extra piece of it. But yeah, it definitely comes in handy.
Yeah, but the Husqvarna tools, I certainly rate them as some of the better ones around. So I've used numerous Husqvarna battery tools and love them.
Yeah, definitely. They're quite hardy. You know, you can drop, or you obviously can drop the batteries by accident, and not a single problem with them.
Yeah,
You
whoops,
know, hardy as
happened.
anything. So, but I think
Yeah,
in the near future, I'll probably look at getting one of the new battery trimmers from them, just for something that's a little bit for those maintained residential lawns. Just something a bit easy, a bit lighter, and I don't have to pull the
yeah.
bloody cord all the time on it.
In the Husky range, I really love the 520 whippersnipper,
Is that the one with
and
the
it's
motor on the bottom, like on the head of it? Sorry.
Yeah, the motor is down on the bottom of the shaft, so it's got the reversible direction, so you can change it between your normal direction, which
Oh,
on there is reverse because its normal direction is the wrong direction.
oh, okay. I mean, that's pretty cool though. If you're going up against windows or houses or something like that, that's pretty nifty actually, just to swap it around and yeah, cool.
Yeah, it is. I would say it's not handy enough to warrant it, but there are times where I use it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we're used to the one way, and you always just
Yeah,
when to do the right thing and when not to do the right thing with it, sort of thing. But that's pretty
yeah.
handy.
But with that is a little bit underpowered. A lot of people complain about it because it's equivalent to a 20cc petrol or two-stroke. And a lot of people want the 25cc power that you get from your traditional whip snippers, line trimmers. So if you want more power, go to the 525 series, and they've got a dedicated one or a multi-tool in the 525. So they are more powerful, definitely, without a doubt, but they don't get the runtime of the 520. And I like the lighter weight of the 520. So I'm like, I can put up with the little bit lacking in power because it's being used for maintenance. I don't need it for doing overgrown work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's sort of all I want it for is just those stock standard fortnightly maintained lawns. Just something to whip through it. It's just something nice, light, easy. Otherwise, I've got the two-stroke Shindaiwa and the multi-tool in the Husqvarna that I can use for anything overgrown or that I need to hack through. That's all I need. Just something a bit lightweight, battery powered. I can just run through the maintain stuff. And I think like you said, there's the 525s, and I think there might be the 535s, or that might be the new series. I can't remember off the top of my head. But.
Well, the 525s are the new popular ones that people are raving about at the moment. So they're all fairly new on the market. The 325 is the older one that's same power, but it's more aimed at home users rather than commercial use.
Okay. Yep.
So I think there is a 535 in their brush cutter range, which you can put a blade on it, and it's got the bull handles.
Oh, that might have been what it was. Yeah, I was just having a quick look on Tink's website the other day and just sort of scrolling through what there was. And I think there's also one down for pre-order there that must be a new one coming into the country or something along the lines of that. The RJD, I think it was, with the batteries.
A lot of people have been asking about which brand of battery tool to buy, and I don't like to recommend one brand of battery for everyone or every situation. Dealer support and access to parts and service all play a big role in that decision. Some brands have better tools for specific needs or each product category. I've been using a variety of brands, and I endeavour to provide unbiased interviews on Aussie Lawn Stars with as many of those product brands as possible. I reached out to Ego Power Plus through the podcast because of how Barry supports the industry and Ego owners. Barry has impressed me with his loyalty to customers in providing support and listening to the needs of the industry, which has resulted in a full lineup of new commercial tools landing in Australia over the last 12 months that has positioned Ego as a leader in the commercial tool space for outdoor power equipment. Visit egopowerplus.com.au to see if they have the tools you need today.
The battery, the blower and the hedger, I've got a couple of typical hand tools, Wolfgarten hand tools, that sort of thing. Good handy stuff to use. I've got that knockoff Makita battery pruner. Brilliant little piece of equipment for $100. Yeah. Look, it's because I've got Makita battery tools at home, and it's a brilliant little tool. I actually use it today to do some privet hedges that were just a bit too big for the hedger. I just went through with those little battery pruners and gave them a whack, but brilliant little machine. Nice. And then I've also got the Stihl GDA 26, the little handsaw. Another one of those brilliant little pieces of equipment that are very handy to have and quite cheap.
I just interviewed Stihl, and that the GTA 26 was one of their most popular items that they've put on the market recently.
Yeah, I heard that, and it's it doesn't surprise me. Like, it's I've seen a few knockoffs since those stills come
Yep.
out, and it's no wonder. Like they're just such a handy little tool to have. There's even a couple of times I've just cut up branches and I'm just like, oh look, I could get the chainsaw if I ever really wanted to, but this thing's just as easy. Might take a little bit longer, but this thing's just as easy, and it's don't have to do much. Just got to press a button and bang, it'll cut for you.
Yeah. I worry about that a little bit because it's so easy that somebody's going to injure themselves with it.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, and especially being a one-handed tool, more often than not,
Yeah.
you don't want to accidentally be holding a branch with one hand with gloves on or something like that, and then grab yourself with a chain with the other.
Yeah, it would not be good. I know what it feels like.
Yeah, not nice. Not nice.
No, it's was a few stitches in my finger as a result of that one.
Oh man, that's in the same instance. It's good. It was only a finger. Could have turned out a lot worse, but I guess, like you said, you learnt your lesson. You know not to do it again.
I was really fortunate with that one that the chainsaw that I was holding was only idling when it happened. Like it had basically gone back to idle, and it still did damage to the finger.
Ah, good, yeah. I mean, good that obviously that it was only idling and not full ball anyway.
Oh, if it was going full ball, then I dare say I wouldn't have the finger still.
No, exactly right.
So yeah, it's a good outcome overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered a fair bit about your equipment. In terms of how you run your business, did you have at the outset any goals or aspirations in terms of how big you want to grow the business or turnover numbers you're aiming for, or did you have it more about achieving lifestyle of getting out of the racetrack and means that I can be home more, I can enjoy life with the family more?
I mean, look, it's a bit of everything, to be quite honest. Working in racetracks, depending upon what racetrack it is, you're typically working you're 5 days a week, but there's also the odd occasion you're working 6 because you got a race a Saturday or a Sunday, and that could be multiple times in a month.
Yep.
So I guess it was a bit of a lifestyle thing. I wanted to come back to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Now, look, I ended up picking up a school pretty quickly when I started gyms, so I do have to do a Saturday every fortnight, but that's pretty cruisy, and I have a day off through the week most times anyway, so I can work that way.
Yeah, okay.
But the other thing probably was going from being a tradesman and being an employee, being the manager at another race course. I enjoyed the responsibility you got of being the boss, and also the pleasure of sort of being able to look at something and say, hey, I've achieved that with my staff from doing this method. So yeah, I guess that was the other thing. I sort of looked at it and then I sort of thought, well, I really enjoyed being a manager and being my own boss. Oh, it's not being my own boss, but being a boss. And I thought, well, I'd like to take that into my own life, earn good money for myself, and be able to sort of say, hey, I've done that, I've achieved that, and I know I've done well at it.
And I'm guessing, as far as the money goes, you've moved forward compared to when you're working at the racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, you get paid well. Typically, you get paid well at a race course. But yeah, and in saying that too, actually, I had X amount of goals that I wanted to, like, I had X amount of dollars I want to achieve per week. And I'm over that quite well now. So, that was another one of those things that when I started the business, I knew I wanted to earn this amount of money. I want to be able to take this home, put this away in the bank. And, eventually the plan is to buy a bigger property for me and the missus. So that's the other goal that
Yeah.
we're sort of moving towards to now.
Do you mind sharing some of those numbers? You can say no, but it's always good to give people that reference in terms of what different people do.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, so sort of shortly after starting, I sort of worked out I wanted to be at $3,000 a week that I could gross that I'd take. And it's moved up. I'm typically anywhere between sort of 3.5 and 5 a week. So, some weeks obviously better than others, and sometimes that's the 6-day week. But it's worked out really well. And in saying that too, when I started, I made a few mistakes with a few quotes, like everyone does. Bumped those prices up, and now I'm sort of comfortably sitting at that $110 a mark per hour, and that's what I like to base the majority of my jobs off.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, okay. So it sounds like your numbers are fairly consistent with what the industry does overall, but certainly, like you recognise, there's a lot of variation in there, even from week to week for you. But I think that's good to look at that and go, okay, if we can aim for those numbers and we got that variation, then in winter time, you're not going to be quite as busy as in summertime. In summertime, you hope to make more weeks where you're doing the higher end and, more months where you're doing more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've got a Excel spreadsheet there where I've sort of got down what my regulars are each month, and then typically gyms, they give you a software like a CRM software where you can monitor all that sort of thing in, and a lot of the times I'm over that typical monthly figure that I'm at, because there's always a few extra jobs that I throw in there, and it's always a bit of a surprise. I'm like, oh, cool, that's a bonus for me that week. So, but yeah, look, in saying that too, you were talking about being at the right price and staying up with the industry standard. I mean, a friend of yours, actually, good old Grant Osborne, when I started with gyms, he was one of the first to give me a call, and that was one of the things he made clear to me. He said, make sure that you back yourself, back what you're worth, and keep up with the industry standard, because if you keep up with everyone, the public knows that this is an expectation of pricing, and to get a good professional contractor, this is what you're going to be paying, not your $30 lawns or $50 front and back lawns sort of thing. So, yeah.
I think the best thing you can do there is to say no to people that are not going to be your customer. So if they're not willing to pay what it's worth for the professional job, or they don't like what you do, or whatever else it might be that comes into it, you can go, okay, I'm happy to say no. You're not the right fit for me. See you later.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of jobs that I've had for a few services, and I'm just like, oh, this isn't the job for me. For whatever reason, I mightn't like it. There was one early on that was just dog shit central. Every time I went there, she got plenty of warnings, and then I was just like, nah, I'm not dealing with this, and gave her the flick. But yeah, look, there's a couple of jobs I'm just sort of like, oh, I don't like this or that about it, and I'm just like, look, I'll pass you on to someone else and they can look after you. But in the same instance, I mean, if there's a job I look at and I'm like, oh, I've got to take the mower upstairs or downstairs, I'm like, I either put a premium on it and obviously don't tell them, but I put my own premium on it, or I'm just like, sorry, I can't do it because I've got a bad back, and which I do anyway. But I don't want to be taking the mower up and down that all the time, because I just know it's going to cause me more hassle than it's worth.
Yeah. And I think the power in saying no there is really valuable. But like you, there's been plenty of times where I've been doing a job going, oh, I really need to deal with this. I really need to tell them that they're not my customer, or that I need to put a smile tax on it.
Yeah, exactly right. And like you said, you live and you learn. You do a few of those jobs, and then you come to a new job that you got to quote, and you're like, I can see that's going to be a problem down the track. I'm either going to throw a little bit extra on there to warrant for the fact that I know it's going to be a problem, or I'm just going to put it in the email and say, hey, please just make sure this is moved or that's done, whatever it might be, before each service.
I've had one or two jobs like that where I really begrudged turning up and doing it. And it's like, what do I need to do here? And once or twice I've gone, oh, what I need to do is just suck it up and do this job. It's good for my constitution to actually do a job either a little bit cheap or it's a job that doesn't quite fit the mold, but it's good for me to have that customer. Reluctant to use the word customer, but have that experience, even though it's not the ideal job.
Oh, definitely. And you know, in that same comment, there's been a couple of jobs where I've underquoted, and I'm like, oh, look, I've made a mistake here, but it hasn't been enough for me to have to go back to the client and try and requote it. But I'm just like, look, I'm going to take the hit, and I'll use it as a learning curve, and at least I know the next place I go to that's around this size, this kind of grass, etc., etc. I've just got to be higher in my quote to know that I'm comfortable doing it.
Yeah, and I think if for no other reason, it's good to be able to have those jobs to tell everyone else about it and how terrible it is.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, like you say, we're in a service industry here. We're here to help people, but in the same instance, we're here to run a business, and it's about keeping people happy and also doing a good professional job. And like you said, word of mouth is a big thing.
Yep. Yeah, and I found some of those jobs where I would begrudge them, but I've decided that I'm going to own it and do it and deal with a customer that I don't really like. The fact that I've persisted on those jobs means that they really appreciate it, because often they know that what they're asking is a stretch.
Yeah, exactly right. And you know, there's been a couple of times where I might have a client who, you know, I'm very friendly with my clients, and I like to build good rapport with them, and I might have a joke with them and have a chat with them for a bit there. And you know, they might say to me, "Oh, do you mind giving that a quick cut while you're here next time?" And yeah, I'll just be like, "Yeah, no worries. It'll take me 5 minutes. I'll give that a quick go." But in the same instance, I'm just make them very aware that can't just keep asking me to do that all the time. Like it costs me time and money to do that. So, but sometimes, it's nice to do.
Yeah.
It's nice to do little things like that, and people appreciate it. Tell you what, actually, there was a post the other night, I think it was on LMCA, where one of the blokes was saying he felt he overcharged for the job, and I think the comment was, you know, what do you do if you feel bad that you've overcharged? One of the other gyms, actually, a friend of mine, Tom Hansen, you interviewed him a while back. He made a really good comment, and he said, you know, even though you think you've overcharged, the client accepted that quote happily. If you feel that way, spray a few weeds or bring the garbages in. You know, just do something little like that, and the client will appreciate that and know that you've gone the extra mile, even if it is a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, and I think all these things we're talking about at the moment, we have the luxury of making choices because it's your own business. If you're working for somebody else, you've just got to deal with it. And when you don't like a job, it's like, well, you're getting paid, you're an employee, get out there and do what you're told. Whereas when it's your business, you get the luxury of being able to go, okay, there's jobs where I'm going to be flexible, and I have multiple reasons why I'm flexible, whether it's because I'm making good money or whether it's because I like the customer or whether it's because I think it's good for my constitution to be flexible on that one. And other times it's like, nope, I have no room to be flexible with that particular customer. And if they ask me to do one extra little thing, it's going to cost them.
Yeah,
It's
spot on.
choice.
And I think, I couldn't agree more. Some of those crappy customers, it's just, like you said, you know that you're not going to go the extra mile for them because they don't appreciate what they do, or they don't sort of show you the respect that you should be earning. And you know, every time they ask you to do something extra, then that's an extra tax that you got to pay me to do. But if it's a nice client who you're friendly with and you can have a joke about, you're like, yeah, cool, give that rose bush a quick prune, or something like that.
Yeah. And particularly in wintertime, if you know that, I've found this is true with a lot of residential jobs. In summertime, when the grass is growing flat out, it takes more effort to mow that job than what it does in wintertime. So if you're turning up in wintertime and you're like, well, I'm going to mow it, not because the grass is growing, but because the weeds are growing. So it's going to take about maybe 2/3 of the time that it would take in summer, maybe even half as much time instead of anywhere near the full time it would take in summer. So I'm quite happy to spend a little bit longer doing something else there to keep that customer happy. And other customers, you might go, well, no, I'm absolutely not willing to spend a second longer there than I need to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you say that, I've actually noticed a little bit too, like with sort of that winter hitting the last couple of weeks. There's a couple of jobs and like, oh yeah, cool. It's about 10, 15 minutes quicker than it normally take me through summer. I might hit a few weeds while I can see them popping up in areas. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll just do that and just keep it tidy for them. And a lot of the time they notice, and it just might be a quick thanks for doing this on the invoice, or they might give you a wave, or say thanks in person, whatever it might be. It's still nice to get that and show that them showing you the respect and the gratitude that it's nice to get that.
Yep. And those customers that you do a little bit extra for are often the customers that give you a fairly nice Christmas present when it's Christmas time too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. There's a couple I had that last year. They come out and they might give you a nice green $100 note. I'm just like, oh, you don't need to do that. And they're like, no, we thankful, we're thankful for what you do. And I'm like, okay, I'll go and spend that on a bottle of Jack Daniels or something like that. Like it's nice to get that thing. You don't expect it. It's nice to get a thank you every now and then.
Yep. And I've found with commercial work particularly, but also with some really good residential clients, I would give them a Christmas present as a way of showing my appreciation too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I never got around to sort of presents or anything like that last year, but I sent out a big bulk email, and but I also personalized each email to each client, so they knew it was for them. But it was just like a nice big, thanks for the business you provide me. I appreciate all the work you do, or passing me on to friends, family, all that sort of thing. Because again, as much as they're your clients and they're there to pay you, you need to show them a bit of respect too, and understand that they're paying you good, hard-earned money, that they want you to look after the place and show the respect to them that you want in return. And a nice thank you Christmas card from them can go a long way.
Definitely. Yeah. So, Mitchell, I think we've covered some really good topics so far in this interview. Is there anything I've missed that you want to talk about?
There's probably one that comes to mind I should probably mention. Little red mower I won from you a while back, actually. The that Cox Drive 21 look. So like I said to you before, I've got the Toro 21 commercial I use as well. So I carry the two of them in the mailbox every day, and I really do like that Cox for a lot of reasons. But it's a lightweight. It's definitely lighter than the Toro, and it has a larger chute. It has a larger chute capacity in the back there. It's come in handy a lot. I actually find myself using it more on couch lawns because it's got the extra higher cut steps, as opposed to the Toros are only every half-inch cut. The Cox are, I think, every quarter-inch cuts, and I find myself using that on couch lawns a lot more. I figure I should mention that if there is anyone out there who's looking for a bit of a cheaper entry-level mower, I think they retail for around $1,600 mark, something around along the lines of that. They are a brilliant mower. They're definitely lighter than those bigger, heavier mowers, and do just as good a job. Swing back blades. Like I said, it's got
Yep.
a big chute on the back of it, so you don't have to worry about it clogging up. Look, the only downfall I personally see to it is the lack of blade break on it. But you get used to that pretty quick. You realise that that's part and parcel of it, and you get used to it. But like I said,
So
very happy with the machine, and
that was
I didn't have to pay for it.
that always helps. That was my 100th episode that I did, where I did the giveaway with that. So it's
yeah,
going back a little while.
It was
now.
really good, actually. Yeah,
It was the end of June last year.
Yeah, I think it was for your. We needed to put in reviews. I think it was for the podcast, and what we liked about the episodes to you. And I think you might have said to me, actually, I put it in the night before entries closed or something along the lines of that. So it was a bit of a
you were
bloody big
right
surprise.
on the line.
Yeah, it was a bloody big surprise, but very, very pleasant surprise, and it's really come in handy for me, especially with those staircase jobs too.
Well, that's good to hear, because I haven't heard a lot of people using those.
Yeah, look, I don't see a lot of mention on LMCA about it. Obviously the egos are a big thing, especially at the moment. I think every second post is about the new ego commercial mower.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like a lot of the times it's mentionings of the HRUs, the Bush Rangers, or the Toros. Don't see a lot of mentions in the Cox, but they are a very good machine. And like I said, personally, I think it matches the Toro. Like I said, there's a couple of different things to it that are pros and cons, but I think it matches the Toro, and for a cheaper price too. I think like the Toros are about $2,300 compared to a $1,600 Cox drive. If you're happy without having a blade break, absolutely, I'd go to the Cox.
Yeah, I think they might be less than 1,600 too. I think their retail might have started at 1,600, but I'm sure I saw it less than that when I was doing the giveaway. I'm just going to search for it now and see if I can find it.
Yeah, it could very well be. I think
got on them.
Yeah, I think it was just when I was in
Terrace I can see ones at 1,600.
Sort of seen it. Okay.
But one I'm looking at the moment says retail 1,600 and their store price is $1,249, which is a substantial discount.
Geez, that's really good. Especially when there are a lot of guys on there
price,
too, like a lot of new guys that are like, I'm looking for something around the $1,500 mark to get me into a commercial mower. I think it's a brilliant mower. Really, really good mower to go for.
Yeah, well, I think if it's at full retail 1,600, it's not too much of a jump from there to the HRU 216 in price. But when you see them going for around the $1,200, $1,300 mark, then it's a pretty good mower for the price.
Oh, absolutely. What do the HRUs typically go for?
I'm not sure now. Last time I looked, they were around $1,800, $1,900.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
So a whisker under $2,000. Just doing a quick search now, and yeah, they're sort of up around that 1,800 mark.
Yeah, okay. I guess it's in the same boat, like you say before. It depends on what kind of dealers and what kind of service you got around you as to what machine you're going to pick up.
Yeah, definitely. You want to know that you got support, whatever brand it is you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beauty of when you live in sort of an area that's, don't get me wrong, I've got to sort of travel 25 minutes to any of my closest dealer, but that's just where I live. But I think that's the beauty of nowadays. There's dealers left, right, and center, and if one of them doesn't have it, 5 minutes down the road's probably got it.
That's it. So yeah, I think you've got a good range of dealers near you, but it sounds like they're all 25 minutes, half hour drive away at least.
Yeah, exactly right. Like Raymond Terrace is the closest. I think, it's about 25 minutes for me. And the only thing they don't
Yeah.
have in Raymond Terrace is Husqvarna. I go to either Maitland or Rutherford for Husqvarna there. So they're
Yeah,
about
okay.
35 minutes, but
Yep.
part and parcel of it.
Fair enough. Yeah, let's I think we've covered everything we need to talk about for this interview. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up now?
Nothing really that I can think off the top of my head. It's hope someone's
Yep.
taken a bit of interest out of it, and maybe there's something I've said in here that's piqued someone's interest or thought, oh, maybe I can try that in my business or whatever it might be. That's about it.
Look, I know for sure people will find it interesting. That the first person that I've talked to that's done work on the race courses, so that was good to cover that topic and give people some insight as to what it's like cutting grass on the race courses.
Yeah, it's something different, and something. Yeah, grass is definitely a bit higher on a race course than typical domestic lawns.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think looking at your business and what you've done with the franchise with gyms, it adds value compared to all the other interviews that I've done. Every interview I do, you find something new that you can learn.
Oh, absolutely. Like might be the tiniest thing, but it could be one of the tiniest things that you take to your business and it can make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, Mitch, thanks for taking time out of your evening to come on and poke around in my dungeon.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. It's a bit of a bright dungeon at the moment. It doesn't look too dark, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, look, in the same instance, I would like to extend a big thank you for not only for obviously, of course, winning that mail from you, but also for
No
what you
worries.
do in the podcast realm. It's always nice to see different people's opinions, how they run their business. And again, like different little bits of advice that I could take back to my own business and enjoy. So it's a pleasure to listen to the podcast, mate, and I hope you keep going for quite some time.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate the positive feedback. And I've looked at it. When I first started, I did some quick maths and I was like, if I'm going to do one a week, which was always the goal to do one a week, that means I'm going to do about 52 interviews a year, give or take, if I get them all out. And there's 20,000 contractors in Australia. So that's a lot of years worth of podcasting if I manage to get hold of everybody.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean,
I've still
I
got,
think there's 7,000 alone in LMCA. So you're never going to be short of people to talk to. And there's always someone with a different backstory or how they run their business. It's always interesting to listen to.
there's still a long list of people that I'm hoping to get to. And there's always people like yourself, which are interesting to come back and talk to after another year or two and say, okay, well, we talked when you're running your business at 18 months, but what's it look like after you've been running for 5 years?
Yeah, exactly right. You might be in the industry, you might not. You might have 20 staff, you might still be a solo operator. You just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yep, that's it. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll let you
No worries,
get
mate.
off, spend some time with your family.
Yeah, it'd be near time for bed, actually. But it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.